So we've even talked about reassigning Foreign Service officers, many of who are trained earlier in their career in consular services, to provide 24-hour presence in some of our embassies and consulates around the world, just to handle the visa load for things like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then the Olympics 2 years behind it.
How are you going to do that with an 84% budget cut?
There's no 84%, but I think you're referring to USAID when it comes to the State Department.
I know that's part of it, but just
yeah,
generally.
But when it comes to the State Department, our consular services are actually intend on ramping up efforts because of the reasons that I've just outlined below, because of the reasons I just outlined earlier. And we recognize that as a top priority. We want it to be a success. It's a priority for the President. And I think there are good numbers because it's the same division that handles it. We are setting records in the numbers of passports that are being processed. Same group of people, so it shows that our systems are improving. And finally, we're looking at ways to infusing technology and AI to even further and rapidly increase that process even further, particularly for people, people who have had visas in the past, so we're just restoring visas. We can move even much quicker on many of those. Well, we're going to comply with the statutory requirements, but we also have to be more careful about who we let into this country.
Well, Welcome back to Right View Nation, where the truth still matters, where America comes first, and where we don't sugarcoat a single thing for the radical left or their bureaucratic buddies. Today, we've got to talk about one of the most delusional exchanges to come out of the swamp recently. An exchange that reveals just how disconnected Democrats have become from reality, how little they care about facts, and how desperate they are to protect a failing agenda under Joe Biden. And of course, the left's latest punching bag is, once again, Senator Marco Rubio. But this time, he didn't just take the punches. He swung back with facts, with clarity, and with the fire that so many of our representatives need to start showing. So here comes Democrat Representative Dina Titus, armed with the usual talking points, sounding more confused than coherent, trying to paint the State Department under this administration as an enemy of diplomacy because of some alleged budget cuts. Now let me tell you something, folks. This is rich. The same party that let Afghanistan fall into chaos, who gutted border security, who begged Iran for oil, and who has managed to insult our allies and embolden our enemies. Now suddenly they care about diplomacy? Now they want to talk about international strength? Give me a break. Titus accused the administration of planning an 84% budget cut, closing embassies, laying off staff, and basically dismantling the backbone of America's foreign policy apparatus. And while many of us conservatives have long been critical of how bloated and ineffective the federal bureaucracy has become, she didn't raise this concern out of principle. She did it out of political theater. She did it to score cheap points by blaming Republicans for Biden's chaos. But here's where it gets good. Rubio, cool, calm, collected, fired back with facts. He made it crystal clear that there is no 84% cut to the State Department's consular operations. In fact, they're ramping up. You heard that right. Ramping up visa processing, expanding double shifts at embassies, and even planning for a 24-hour presence in key locations. Why? Because America is still the beacon of hope, and people around the world want to come here for the World Cup, the Olympics, and the dream that only America can offer. And what was Representative Titus' reaction?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You know, I keep hearing you say your job is to carry out the mission of the executive branch and the agenda of the president. It's kind of hard to figure out what the president's foreign policy is. It jumps around from Gaza being a resort area to we're going to help Ukraine or we're not, we're going to have tariffs on China or we're not, we're meddling in the Romanian election. I don't know how you figure out what the agenda is. Also, you say you want to make the State Department stronger, but everything we've seen coming from y'all is that you're dead set on kind of killing it or at least undermining American interests. I think you proposed an 84% budget cut, plans for widespread diplomatic closures, laying off staff across the board. I don't see how any of those things really makes us stronger and delivers for the American people. Now, I believe that jeopardizes our national security, but I want to ask you something a little more arcane, a little more specific to my district that has to do with some economic investments, and that's about tourism. You know, we've been working very hard to improve the visa services over the last few years. Seems to me what you're doing is going to undercut that and move us backwards. We're already seeing this as a problem in Las Vegas where tourists are down by 8% just in a few short months. And this problem's going to become more acute as we look to host the Olympics and we host the World Cup. So could I just ask you, are you planning to cut the Consular Affairs Bureau that does the visas by 15% like we're hearing?
No, consular affairs may actually even be expanded. And in fact, we are looking for ways to do double shifts in some of our embassies around the world because of the visa requirements. For example, if you haven't applied for a visa from Colombia already, you probably won't get here in time for the World Cup unless we go to double shifts. So we've even talked about reassigning Foreign Service officers, many of who are trained earlier in their career in consular services, to provide 24-hour presence in some of our embassies and consulates around the world just to handle the visa load for things like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then the Olympics 2 years behind it. And in fact, go ahead.
How are you going to do that with an 84% budget cut?
There's no 84%, but I think you're referring to USAID when it comes to the State Department.
I know that's part of it, but just
generally. But when it comes to the State Department, our consular services are actually intend on ramping up efforts because of the reasons that I've just outlined below, because of the reasons I just outlined earlier. And we recognize that as a top priority. We want it to be a success. It's a priority for the president. And I think there are good numbers because it's the same division that handles it. We are setting records in the numbers of passports that are being processed. Same group of people, so it shows that our systems are improving. And finally, we're looking of ways to infusing technology and AI to even further and rapidly increase that process even further, particularly for people. We're people who have had visas in the past, so we're just restoring visas. We can move even much quicker on many of those.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, but I want to look and see what you do, not just what you say, because when you talk about cutting budgets, talk about cutting personnel, talk about closing embassies and consulates, I don't know how you can increase the visa process or make it quicker.
There's no proposal at this time to close embassies or consulates. That's been media reporting because people like to leak lies, but there's no such work.
So that's not happening?
None are proposed, and I think I would know.
Know about it? Well, okay. Well, let's check that out and see where that information is coming from. If I could switch just a little bit to Afghanistan, you've heard a little bit about that. I introduced legislation to authorize the CARE Act, the Coordination for Afghan Relocation Efforts. You voted for that, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Mass voted for that. We called for this to be created and have an appointment made. I wonder, can you tell us what's happening with that to help us serve these Afghan refugees? Or are you wearing that hat too, or is there somebody else that you're going to appoint to that position?
Well, primarily the DHS responsibility for the intake of people into our country. I can certainly take that back and give you information on what progress they've made in that regard. But I will also tell you that one of the things we're tackling right now is we have to be able to properly vet anyone who comes into this country, given the mass migration events we've confronted over the last 3 years.
I suspect these people are vetted as much or more than just about anybody else coming into the country as refugees.
Well, some of them. They include dependents, and in many cases a higher level of vetting is necessary because they're coming from countries where we don't have a lot of information. Not every country keeps, including Afghanistan, has perfect records. Some of them, we know them because they've worked with us in the past. Others, we just have limited information on them.
So, but we are going to continue with this Afghan relocation efforts and this office, this CARE office. That's what you're committing to me?
Well, we're going to comply with the statutory requirements, but we also have to be more careful about who we let into this country.
Well, I didn't say that. I know we have to be careful, but I'm just saying we need to continue with that effort. You voted for it. Mr. Mass voted for it, but I don't see any progress on it. I hear just the opposite. So I appreciate that commitment. Thank you, and I yield back.
She couldn't believe it. She literally said, "I want to see what you do, not what you say." Well, lady, maybe you should start reading beyond the headlines your staffers feed you. Oh, and then came the real kicker. Titus pressed him on reports about embassy closures, and Rubio didn't just deny it. He exposed the game. That's media reporting. People like to leak lies. Boom. There it is. We're living in an era where fake news isn't just a meme, it's a system. It's a mechanism used by the deep state and the radical media elite to manipulate narratives, smear patriots, and keep the American people confused and fearful. Rubio calling that out is exactly the kind of boldness we need in every Senate hearing, every committee, every debate. But it didn't stop there. Titus then shifted gears to talk about Afghan refugees, citing the CARE Act, the legislation Rubio himself supported, to help relocate Afghan allies. And once again, she played the emotional card, suggesting the Biden administration isn't doing enough to implement it. Now hold up. Let's remember who botched the Afghanistan withdrawal in the first place. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't conservatives. It was Joe Biden. His administration handed over the country to the Taliban, left Americans stranded, and abandoned thousands of vetted allies. And now they want to whine about vetting, about delays, about coordination? Rubio was direct. He said DHS is handling the intake, but emphasized the need for thorough vetting. Why? Because we have a right to know who we're letting into our homeland. Some of these people are coming from areas with little to no reliable documentation. It's not racist, it's not xenophobic, it's called national security. Rubio's message was clear. Yes, we'll meet our obligations. Yes, we'll uphold our values. But we will not sacrifice safety to make woke liberals feel warm and fuzzy inside. And he's absolutely right. This exchange is just another perfect snapshot of the two Americas we're dealing with. One side, our side, believes in order, in borders, in truth, and in the strength of the American system when it's actually allowed to work. The other side, they're obsessed with appearances. They weaponize lies. They leak fake stories to friendly outlets, then pretend they're shocked when the truth bites back. We need more leaders like Rubio standing their ground, not backing down when the left throws tantrums, not apologizing when the facts hurt feelings, and not pretending that the media isn't part of the problem. So here's the real takeaway, folks. Don't fall for the headlines. Don't let the noise of the swamp drown out the truth. When you see someone like Rubio hold the line, support them. Share the truth. Stand firm. This country is worth fighting for, and if we want to preserve it for the next generation, we need to hold the line right here, right now. If you're tired of watching the left manipulate reality, hit that like button. If you support putting America first, hit subscribe and ring that bell. Drop a comment below and tell us, are you ready to stand up against the media lies and fight for truth? This is Right View Nation, and we'll be right here, loud, proud, and unapologetic. God bless you. God bless our troops. And God bless the United States of America.